Welcome to the Manufacturing Shakeup. We're your hosts, Ellen Feldman-Ornato
and Jenny Drescher. We're talking with dynamic women from across the manufacturing scene in Connecticut.
Hey, Shakeup listeners, good morning. We are so excited about today's show because we're going to talk about workforce development through the lens of this idea that we shouldn't leave any stone unturned when we're trying to fill the positions that we have available in manufacturing facilities across the state of Connecticut. Today's guest is Jacqueline Gallo from Pursuit Aerospace, and she's the EVP of Operations and Shared Services. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we are so delighted to have you here. And let's start with a little bit of your career journey, because I have it in my notes here that it's called, quote unquote, meteoric. So you've clearly been on the fast path. You're an EVP in an aerospace company. How did you get there?
I don't know if I'd call it meteoric, but thank you. So interestingly, and I don't want to minimize the amount of work, but it's a little bit of a Forrest Gump kind of situation, if that's a relevant movie anymore. But basically, I went to college at Boston University. I grew up in the smallest town in the smallest state in Rhode Island. And so going to the city was a big risk for me. Yeah. And then I started my career at Pratt & Whitney. I did a rotational development program, which was really foundational for me. I learned a lot. And then spent a few years at Pratt and left to go to a smaller company in Manchester, Connecticut. And I was there about a year and it got bought by GE. So I ended up back in a big company.
Sure.
And I did a lot of different jobs, engineering and also operations and leadership roles. I left GE in 2012 to go work for a company called Whitcraft, which merged with Paradigm in 2023 to become Pursuit Aerospace. Yeah. And the last 13 years I've been with Whitcraft, now Pursuit, I just have continued to take the most difficult jobs. If something came up that was a crisis and I was asked to help, I always said yes. And I've grown along with the company. The company has grown significantly as well.
Excellent. So before we go ahead into the next question, I want to pause and invite you to say a little bit more about that rotational development program that you did when you were first with Pratt, because a lot of the people listening to this are thinking about a career in manufacturing, and bigger companies, whether it's GE or Pratt. I know a lot of the insurance companies do this as well. Can you talk a little bit about that rotational development program as a way that you saw other parts of the company and opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. And actually, Pursuit has a rotational development program called Pursuit Leadership Development, PLDP.
Fantastic.
The program I did at Pratt & Whitney was MED, Manufacturing Engineering Development. It was 4 6-month rotations, so it was 2 years. And I really got the opportunity to see different aspects of the business. I rotated through areas that I normally wouldn't have.
Like what?
So I did like design engineering. As an example, I was a manufacturing engineer. And so I did a 6-month rotation through design engineering. Mm-hmm. And what I learned is that I really didn't want to do that.
Okay.
And so, it's valuable for that reason too, I think, and you're not there forever. So, you can get through 6 months if it's really not something you enjoy. Which was the instance for me. I was a process engineer for coatings, like putting coatings, applying coatings onto parts. I was also a manufacturing engineer for grinding processes. So I got exposed to a lot of different types of processes and also different roles, like the design one. But I also did like a continuous improvement rotation. Mm-hmm. So I did a rotation through what Pratt called the ACE office at the time. And I really loved that. And that's actually a part of what has fueled my passion, and Pursuit's a big proponent of Kaizen and continuous improvement. So that's something that I've carried through my whole career that I got exposed to during a rotational development program.
Fantastic. And were you in all one place? Like, were you rotating through geographically in one place? Because I know a lot of companies will move you around for 6-month stints as well.
Yeah. So for me, I rotated through East Hartford only. I had the opportunity to go to Middletown, but I didn't take it. But at the time, East Hartford Pratt it's still pretty big, but
Enormous.
like you could, it was enormous. And so it felt like a different place. I did work at GE. They had a rotational development program, and Pursuit has one, and people physically move. So yeah, that's an option. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So I just want to be sure to include that, because a lot of people from a career perspective are thinking, I want to do this one thing. And companies that give you that opportunity to dip into these different pools of experience, sometimes in the same physical space. I know one of our clients, they send people overseas. So, so they get that opportunity to actually see where things are made and to interact with international teams. And they come back as a more well-rounded individual with more experience in that kind of pursuit.
Yeah, I mean, I can't emphasize enough. For people that I mentor, I think it's a great way to start your career. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I've ended up in this leadership role, but it wasn't something that I was trying to get to. And so the rotational program was huge. And plus, there's a lot of training that they invest, like classroom style training, that I think if you just went into a normal role, you might not get the opportunity to do. And I also had the privilege of doing a study abroad my last year in college. So I did get sort of exposed out of country, and that was really beneficial to me as well. So I always try to support and encourage people to take those opportunities if they have them.
And where did you study abroad?
In Italy.
Fantastic. So did you speak Italian going there?
No, but I learned it. By the time I left, I was pretty well articulating, but it's been years. It's one of those things you have to practice. So it's gone now.
Yeah, I totally, I did a semester abroad in Spain. So same kind of thing. Yeah, very cool. And it comes in super handy. So I want to, your curiosity track and your passion for learning, how have you taken that and started to apply it to bringing people into the manufacturing space who might not get there through the more traditional 4 years of school? I know that you've been very involved with second chance programs. So can you explain what a second chance program is and, how that's working?
Yeah. So in 2018, I was in a growth period with a site I was running, Eastford, Connecticut. I was a general manager, and we were trying to think of, pipelines of talent that may not be served well, maybe underserved. And we had a sister site in Newburyport, Mass, that had a partnership with a prison, and I found that really fascinating. I also have a personal connection to, helping people who may be in systems that are difficult to get out of. And so I reached out to a prison in Connecticut. It was Willard Cybulski Prison, and connected with the warden there and asked if they would be interested in doing a partnership. I was really curious how that would work and if they had any examples of that in the state. And come to find out, there is 1 or 2 examples of partnerships with people who are incarcerated, but it's not advanced manufacturing, and I wouldn't consider it skilled labor necessarily. And so this really was the first of its kind. And within a few months, we had people on the ground working. I just think, I don't know if people know the stats, but there's 10,000 people incarcerated in Connecticut. You've got to believe that some percentage of those people are talented and, you know, are not going to get the opportunity to work because after they serve their sentence and get released, society may not allow them to re-enter in a meaningful way. And that's been my aim in trying to help lift up that population of people, but also help the workforce at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And from it's always a big word, recidivism, a return to prison rate. How have your folks fared that you've hired from the prison system?
Yeah, really well. So normally, and if you go on and you can Google this, there are stats on recidivism for the state of Connecticut and for the US. Usually after 3 years, the data says that you can most people will be put back in or they'll get back incarcerated 50% of the time after 3 years.
Okay.
In our programs, right now, it's about 10%. And so it's significantly different. And, you know, if you met some of the people who have come through these programs, not all of them still work for Pursuit, which is totally fine. But the important thing is also it's not just that they're not back in prison. It's also they really enjoy what they're doing and the pride that they have in being able to lift themselves up, but also their families, and otherwise would not have that opportunity.
Yeah. And do you have a specific example? Does somebody come to mind? Obviously, you're not going to use that person's name, but like this, how they were coming in and where they are now and the specific impact that that's had on their family?
Yeah, you know, I have yes, I have lots of stories. We've employed so the prison partnerships that we have is about 10% of our workforce in Connecticut.
Wow.
And we've employed, you know, over 150 or so over since the start of the programs in 2019. So we've got lots and lots of stories. But one in particular, there's a woman who we hired who was 19 and got into a car accident under the influence. The person who was in her passenger seat died. She was charged and went to prison. And she served, I think something like 15 years and was had an opportunity to get released into our work release program, which is one of the programs that the people come on site to our shop every day. And then at the end of the day, they go back to prison. And then when she graduated or got out of prison, she continued to work for us. And one of her friends that is in also one of our programs, she was about to get released and she told her that she was going to go back to an abusive relationship that she had been in so that she could keep her children. But because of this work, because of the fact that she was in a work release program and could save money, she actually had the money to get her own apartment and get out of, not just for herself, but for her children, get out of an otherwise situation that she didn't feel that she had the means to get out of. And so she was really just going to go back into it. And to me, that was like a huge, huge deal.
Huge
because
win.
it affects not just her, but the kids, you know, and
you're impacting not just that person's life, but the life of their children, their well-being, the likelihood that they won't have violence in their home and that their mom will be more secure and stable.
And those two ladies met each other in prison and also were part of the work release. And so they were helping each other as well, which,
phenomenal,
you know, is really great.
Yeah. Takes that village for sure. And the person at the head of the village who's bringing people in. So let's acknowledge that you started that first program.
Took a lot of people. It wasn't just me, but you know, a lot of people were involved. The state of Connecticut there's a lot of, believe it or not, there are a lot of people in the prison system that work for the prison, that work for the state, that genuinely do want to see people not come back and do well. And so a lot of those people helped as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. It's great to see, you know, in our small state that we've got the ability to have people collaborate for better outcomes for people who have served their time in prison. The last thing I want to ask you about, we've got a couple minutes left, is Kaizen. What is it? I mean, we hear words like lean and Six Sigma and Kaizen all the time in the manufacturing space, but for people listening, they may have heard the word, but because it's not part of what they do, they don't really know what it is. So can you give like a short explanation of what Kaizen is?
I'll try to keep it short.
Thanks, because I know you're super enthusiastic about it. So go. What is Kaizen?
Yeah, so a lot of companies have continuous improvement programs. Pursuit does practice Kaizen. Kai means change. Zen is for the betterment of people. And so we focus on improving and making changes in order to support the folks on the shop floor who are making our product and make their lives better. And really, Kaizen is a structured, facilitated workshop that we take people out of their jobs and they use tools to look at the processes and try to improve them.
Okay. And how does that positively impact the lives of the people who are having that Kaizen process applied with them into the processes that they perform?
Well, we try to make it easier for people to do their job physically, safer. And, you can apply Kaizen to yourself too, like, always trying to improve. And it actually lines up, it's very synergistic with Pursuit, which is our tagline is always pursuing better. And so it's kind of in our DNA. And I think it helps. We just did a workshop this past week, and a Kaizen workshop, and there were lots of examples of how people entering the week had a noisy or dirty process, and on the backside of it, it was quiet, it was clean. And so we're trying to respect people's humanity with what we're doing and create a situation that, you wouldn't mind working yourself in, or your kids, you wouldn't mind bringing your kids in. That's what we're trying to do with Kaizen, to transform manufacturing to be the kind of place that people want to work, and not what people envision maybe 20, 30 years ago, dark and loud and, smells like oil. And so our shops are clean and bright, and we're using Kaizen to try to lead the charge and focus on our people.
Jacquie Gallo, this has been just a fabulous conversation. I'm sure we could talk all morning, but I'm going to wrap this up with the shakeup factors. At the end of every manufacturing shakeup, we have some shakeup factors. So I'm going to share 3 that I pulled from our conversation today, although I have an entire page full of notes. The first is that, especially early in your career, pick and say yes to the most difficult jobs. Like throw yourself in there and figure out how to figure it out. Saying yes to taking on the most difficult jobs doesn't mean that you have to figure it out yourself. It means you're willing to challenge yourself. And that includes rotational programs and maybe even physically moving from where you are to another place in the organization or even out of the building. Number 2 is think about how you can give someone a second chance. Lots of people make mistakes that follow them for their whole lives. So if you can look at alternative places where you can find people and maybe give them a chance at agency and self-sufficiency, you're not only creating a stronger workforce, you're creating opportunity. And the last one, this is so tied together, this whole idea of Kaizen and respecting people's humanity. How can you look around where you are and think, how can I make something better for myself and change things for betterment? How can I make a difference where I am? How can I look at my own workspace and see what can I do to make it less chaotic, less dirty, and make it clean and more peaceful for me so that I can walk through the day feeling more peaceful for myself and the people around me, which is that Kaizen principle that you talked about so beautifully, Jacquie. I want to thank you for being on the Manufacturing Shakeup and for navigating all of the technological glitches we had this morning. You were just like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll figure it out. I feel like that's how you've walked from college into this EVP position and are always pursuing better. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciated the dialogue. It's been great to get to know you a little bit and talk about these things I'm so passionate about.
Yeah, your passion comes through in every statement. Thanks, Jackie. The Manufacturing Shakeup is sponsored by the Connecticut Office of Manufacturing, produced by Maselli Productions and Gale Communications, and hosted by the Boulder Company.